Allahu Akbar.
حي على الصلاة.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
حي على الصلاة.
Islam family,
Islam.
rise giving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the highest of praise and the highest of honors to his holy and divine prophet, Noble Ali. I want to extend those honors to the forerunner, the harbinger, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who did warn, restore the nations. I want to give honors to the Moorish American standard, the red flag with the green five-pointed star in the center, representing the highest principles that are known to man, which is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I also want to acknowledge the United Trading Banner, also known as the American flag. I want to give honors to all Moorish Americans, both past, present, and future, for myself, who strive to promote, who strive to perpetuate the Prophet's holy and divine, the holy and divine Prophet by way of his holy instructions and divine laws. I also want to give honors to all organizations who strive to promote the interests of all Asiatics and indigenous peoples living in America. Islam?
Islam.
I want to give honors to Temple Number 19, the Office of the Grand Governor, Lieutenant Grand Governor, the Sheik staff, the admin staff, and the acting vanguards who keep the peace. I want to give honors to you, the Ills and Bays, and the sacred groves, because when man honors man, he honors thy Father God Allah. Islam?
Islam.
Once again, all praises are due to Allah for having us here on another holy day evening so that we may continue to build on things that make us better citizens and reason together. Islam?
Islam.
I want to give a brief measure to raise up the ethers. And I'm actually going to draw briefly from Act 2 of our divine constitution and bylaws. And it reads, all meetings are to be open and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest because on a Friday the first man was formed in flesh, and on a Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended to his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Islam family?
Islam.
So, not to get too lofty and too deep, when we think of our prophet, when he gave that edict, or that order rather, we know that Friday, comes from the Norse Frida or Frega, which means love. And we go even further back to our, I would say, our pre-Indo-European or our Far Eastern terminology, which is Priya, which means love. All right, so contrary to popular belief, the majority of language comes from, or the majority of the origins of language come from the Far East. I will go so far as to say, by way of our ancient forefathers, the ancient Canaanites and the Moabites. Islam. So when going back to this act, it says Friday was the day on which man was formed in flesh, and it was on a Friday which man departed out of flesh. So when we talk, there's an ongoing, I don't want to say it's a joke, but it's an ongoing discussion, a humble discussion about man and Allah. Brother Raphael and the brother Khalid, we talk about it all the time. And it always seems to happen during Sunday school. We talk about man being formed, man being made, and man being created, if you will. So, all in all, we have that banter, but we know the degrees of all of that. We know that that man was created in the image and likeness of his Father God Allah. Spirit man, if you will, but we also know that physical man was formed. And how, by the way he was formed, he was made fearfully and wonderfully. Islam? So all of that, when we think about this concept of man, we're thinking about this concept of the Spirit of Allah. All right, first and foremost, it says when we talk about the degree of master and servant and magistrate, and well, master and servant, it gives the measure to the master to be knowledgeable of your servant, because the spirit of man, which is the spirit of Allah, is within him. Right? So that is to be carried across the board when we engage with each other. All right. So simply put, I'm giving you another angle, another perspective, rather, when we think about engaging with man, when we engage with our brothers or our sisters. I had an epiphany on my way driving down here, is that we are Muslims, are we not? All right. So when we talk about the concept of being a Muslim, concept of being a Muslim, regardless if you want to, if you're familiar with that terminology or not, all men strive in one way or another to be at peace with himself internally and externally, with all creations of Allah. So my question to you is, how, first and foremost, do you make peace with yourself? And in addition to that, how do you strive to promote peace when you engage with your brother or your sister? All right, that's the question that I want to arise, because so when we think about that concept, there should always be an understanding, even if there's a disagreement. There should always be an intention of, when you engage with your brother or your sister, that no malicious thought comes into your mind, no ulterior motive. You all should be working together in harmony. All right? That is the duty of a Muslim.
That's right.
So if we are to genuinely submit our will in the will of to the will of Allah, then this is what we should be striving to do. And I know it sounds more easier than it's easier said than done. But that's why we're here on this carnal plane.
That's right. So
we can learn from one another. It should not be any conflict. See, what we define as a dichotomy of quote unquote good and evil is just different perspectives of a struggle. And so that is the gift and the blessing of engaging with each other, because we can understand each other's struggle. So if we understand and we're able to empathize and gain that wisdom of what the plight is of that person, we can choose on how we are going to interface with them. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes harmony means that you do not engage with that person at all. All right? So, let's go back to the ants and the bees, as in our Quran of Muhammad. All right? The ants and the bees, they have a thought, whether it's directly or indirectly. If you don't mess with me, I won't harm you. And that's generally how all of nature and Allah's creations outside of humanity, how they operate. They have an order of who they deal with, who is the asset, and they know internally who not to deal with or what not to deal with. And it goes back, and I'm paraphrasing, does not the ass know that who the nutrition when he builds down the herbage, and how the crocodile stands erect, so on and so forth. That is internally within them. And the blessing of Allah is that we have that spirit and that soul to act in that will, so we can better determine. And the fact that we have that will, we have the ability to, regardless of that person, let me backtrack. We have the ability to better determine who we build the harmony with. Does that make sense what I'm saying? All right. So going back to Act 2, this is the day on which man was formed. All right. This is when man was formed in the flesh. He was formed on this carnal plane. Why is that? We're not going to do. That's something I want you to contemplate, to consider. But all in all, he was manifest. He was formed on this plane to manifest out of an act of love. All right. Going back to what I discussed quite some time ago, how many of us are creatives? Whether you write or you do any form of artwork, or even when you speak. All right. When you create, that is an action of love. All right. When you draw, even with me writing right here, I'm taking a part. I'm utilizing a part of myself and the energy, and I'm sacrificing it out of the spirit of love on this, so I can share with you all. Me speaking to you is an act of love and creation, because what Allah has set upon my spirit and my heart, I am sharing with you. This is the creation. This is how it is formed. In the beginning, it was what? Word. The Word, and the Word was with Allah. All right. So this is how things are formed and created out of love. And then it goes on by saying, and on a Friday, this is a man departed out of flesh and ascended to his Father God Allah. That doesn't necessarily mean death on the plane of manifest. Again, it goes back to the breath and the length and the voice that I speak to you, because as it is formed, it is departing and being allocated to you all and to Allah. This is the vibrating in rippling effect. Islam. So also, we're talking about a psychological and how you are able to raise up your thoughts on the holy day or on a holy day. All right. So when you reflect, you're ascending to the Father God Allah as well, because reflection is the business of man. All right. So that is why the day of love is the day for all Muslims, those who seek peace all over the world. Islam, family?
Islam.
All right? So when we think about this day of love, we think about Allah. We think about the things that we have done these past 4 to 6 days, or even 7 days if you want to count Saturday throughout the week. How much have we made a difference internally? How much have we made a difference externally? You know, and again, whether it is for ought or it is for naught, inshallah, it is intended within the spirit of Allah. Islam? So, earlier this week, I had a conversation with our Grand Sheik, and I enjoy our conversations amongst the conversations with your brothers and sisters. But there was a couple of things that stood out for me this week. The first thing was, as a speaker, as an orator, regardless of how dismal the situation may be, your message should always give hope. So, inshallah, I've done that in my speeches. Praise Allah.
Praise Allah.
Because that is very important. When we, as Moorish Americans, as sheiks, and those who are honored and privileged to be at the rostrum, we often, or sometimes rather, we express our frustrations and determination. And we're human, you know. But it is our responsibility as divine ministers, as missionaries, to give the people in the groves, the people that are on social media, whoever is hear it, we have to give them hope. The second thing that stood out for me that I'm going to touch on briefly is the condition of our people. We talked about generations before now, and one thing that I mentioned to the Grand Governor is that our condition is different. It doesn't take away from the struggles that our foremothers and our forefathers have went through. But what we have to remember is that in those times, there was a message for that condition, or messages for that condition, and it helped them to pull through, to push forward. Whether we're talking about the time of chattel slavery, Reconstruction, Civil Rights Movement, the disenfranchisement of the Negro, etc., our people have been given messages and words of hope throughout those generations that gave them the ability to push forward. In other words, they had tapped in to the holy breath, that saving power. You get what I'm saying?
Yes,
So we as Moorish Americans, those who strive to make a difference in the world, that think that our condition can be better, we have indirectly, if you will, taken on that responsibility of giving hope to our people. But part of giving hope to our people is understanding the conditions today of our people. I want to read in part. Well, no, I'll read the whole thing. I'm going to draw from an article in the Moorish literature, Savior of Humanity. All right? In this electrified age, men are racing into this life without a complete knowledge of where they are going or what the end will be. When the riches seem to be their only pursuit, to be obtained any way and at any cost. When selfishness, avarice, greed, and lust dominate their very being, when humanity in general is left at the mercy of those who have no mercy on them. It is truly wonderful and astounding to see one come into this mad human drama for the sole purpose of saving humanity, losing all sight on those things worldly and yielding absolutely to a higher, and yielding absolutely to a cause higher than has ever been yet attained, or has ever yet been attained. This picture is the likeness of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who is serving humanity. And I am going to just stop right there. That message in itself speaks volumes. Knowing the condition of our people, we as Moorish Americans, we should not just believe but have faith that the instructions and the teachings of our holy and divine prophet were relevant before his time, during his time, and after his time. Islam. The things that I just mentioned, the avarice, selfishness, being at the mercy of those who have no mercy, people, greed and lust that dominate their very well-being. We can see that our prophet Noble Drew Ali was going through a similar situation that we're going through now. And again, it's very similar, but the vices are a little different. The interaction is different. The enemy is similar, but it's masked in different forms. But our prophet, all praises be to Allah, knew the conditions of our people. Do we know the conditions of our people? We say we know, but sometimes, and I even say this for myself, we have a tendency to live in a bubble. Because we have an idea of what we would like our reality to be, our center, and as well as outside of that, as I spoke about earlier. And we have to humble ourselves. We have to understand that, again, each and every person that we interact with is a part of us. So it will behoove us to know that person that we're speaking to. Like, do we know that person that we're speaking to? Haru and I'm picking on you today more. we know each other. So I can walk into his place of business and I can see, in his face and his spirit and his aura, Islam, all is well. Islam, all is well.
That's right.
Islam. And we'll talk about it. The same thing for me. When I come into the workplace, he can see how I stride. He can sense my aura. He can sense my spirit. You treading light more, or you walking heavy more. You know what I mean? Because we built that dialogue. So, how many of us and the people that we've met have developed some form of dialogue and relationship with that person, especially if we interact with them on a day-to-day basis? Because we should be getting to know them. Thus we can know ourselves, right? If I may, the situations are similar, but the conditions are the same. Meaning that we have different vices now. At that time, at the time of the Prophet, you had some opioids, you had some absinthe, and so on and so forth. Now we have crack. We have cocaine. I think it was heroin then. We have heroin now. All right. We have crystal meth. All right. We have social ailments. All right. And are we supportive of each other? Because when these things were happening in the time of our Prophet, there was a strong circle and a group of people around them for support. But do we have that now? What is it that I'm getting at? The importance of what you do as a Moorish American Muslim, as a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America, is incumbent upon what you hold dear, or what is most important to you. And our brother Yosef said the purpose, he quoted our catechism saying that the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America is to what? I sound like y'all don't believe that. The purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America is to what?
Uplift fallen humanity.
Praise Allah. I may be talking about this, and that may be an ongoing theme for a couple more measures, holy days rather. Because we have to know and truly understand that. I'm going to draw in part from chapter 39, the holy instructions from the Prophet, the pinnacle of wisdom. I want everybody to turn to chapter 39. I want you to say Islam when we get to that chapter. Brother, you have a...
Repeat the chapter.
Chapter 39. So, before I go into this chapter, does anyone tell me what's been going on locally or internationally in the news? Yes, sir.
Government shutdown?
Government shutdown. We're going to talk about that. What else is going on?
In the UK, there has been some major uproar about the Brexit plan.
Okay.
Which is, yeah.
All right. What about locally? You know what's going on locally?
Locally, Brian, the governor has been striving to make some, basically stand up to his word and his promises as he campaigned for that governor role.
What else is going on in the world for this week that we know about? No problem at all. I say that because again, how can we uplift fallen humanity if we don't know what's going on in humanity?
No straight on.
And again, this goes past my ears as well. You know, just thinking about these things, it was laid on my heart because it's important. You know, prophet says, how did he begin? He said, what's the purpose of the Moorish Concept of America, to uplift fallen humanity? And then he went on by saying, how did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish Americans? By teaching them to be themselves. All right. So who we are Moorish Americans. Who we are Moorish, and not just Moorish Americans, but we're Moorish American Muslims.
That's right.
So
That's right.
it is our duty to protect humanity. All right. Chapter 39, Holy Instruction from the Prophet, the Pinnacle of Wisdom. Everybody there say Islam?
Islam.
All right. Instruction 1, as the eye of the morning to the lark, as the shade of the evening to the owl, as honey to the bee, or as the carcass to the vulture, even such is life into the heart of man. Though it bright, it dazzleth not. Though obscure, it displeaseth not. Though sweet, it cloyeth not. Though corrupt, it forbiddeth not. Yet, who is he that knoweth his true value? Learn to esteem as thou ought, then art thou near the pinnacle of wisdom. I want to stop right there. What is he talking about? What are we talking about here? Out of all the wisdom or the knowledge that we obtain by way of studying self, prophet said, and I say this often, the prophet said, first and foremost, know thyself and thy Father God Allah, so you may learn to love instead of hate. And he says that amongst all things, so you can understand the pinnacle of wisdom. What does pinnacle mean? Top. Pinnacle means top, the height, the zenith. So the height of wisdom, all the knowledge that you obtain, the very height of that wisdom, the action of knowledge, the science, if you will, the applied gnosis, is the preservation of life. That's just what it is. I want you all to write down morning and lark. And I want you all to research that. I'm not gonna trouble you with my measure. It's a great measure. I don't want to do it. I want to continue on. It's a long chapter. I don't think I may be able to read the whole thing, but I want to drive home this one thing about the importance of life. Going on to instruction 4, think not with the fool that nothing is more valuable, nor believe with the pretended wise that thou oughtest to condemn it. Love it not thyself, but for the good it may be of others. Again, we're talking about life. I talked about, I mentioned last Sunday school, is certain things, you know, when you read this Moorish Holy Quran, read it carefully, because our prophet gives us a jewel and certain key words that if you're able to replace that word with, you know, with whatever the subject may be, it gives you a better understanding. It doesn't take away from it. If anything, it enhances it. It gives you a better understanding. So again, we're talking about life. So this whole time, once it's established, then we should be thinking about it. When it, he, so on and so forth, she, it. We're referring to life. So the pretended wise, thou oft condemn it. Love it not thyself, but for love it not for thyself, but for the good of others. Love your own life, not for the good of thyself, but for the love of others. You gotta love yourself. To know thyself is to love thyself. Gold cannot buy it for thee, neither mines of diamonds purchase back the moment that has long lost. Employ the succeeding ones in virtue. Say not that it was best to have not been born. Right?
Wow.
Or if born, that it has not been best to die early. Neither dare thou to ask of thy Creator, where has been the evil had I not existed? It's that hate right there, boy.
Yeah.
We have those that are walking around. I believe sometime in the middle of last year, 2008, we talked about the importance of recognizing mental health and all the signs of mental health and all the types of mental health, because we in the Asiatic community we often blow it off as if somebody's character is just boisterous, or or Jermaine is just crazy. Don't worry about it. Or Latifah, she just loud like that. But when we take the time and notice that there's certain levels of mental health and stability, we should take notice to that. Real quick hip hop sidebar. Who's heard of the rapper Royce the 5'9"? All right, Royce the 5'9" has a song called "Check on Your Strong Friend."
Wow.
So sometimes the very person that you look to give you strength, they may be struggling themselves.
Islam.
Because you're pouring so much into them, especially if they don't have no one to pour into themselves.
Right.
So they take all of that spirit and that energy in, and are you even considering that? When you call them, the first thing you call is, how this is messed up and how that is messed up. But, have you ever want to think what's going on with them? Do you ask them, peace, good afternoon, how you doing? What's going on with you, man? How are you doing? You know what I mean? Because that at least gives them the hope to know that you are invested in them. This concept of friendship, this concept of a brotherhood, a sisterhood, you take this seriously. Because that means that you're a brother or a sister or you have a friend that you're invested in them. When we talk about relationships, you should be thinking about this person that I'm about to go into become a lifelong partner with. How can I make their life better? See, we do the opposite.
Come on now.
What can that person do for me? That brother got a nice car, that sister got a good house and got a good job, she got good credit. We often go with the sisters with the good credit. Islam? I didn't expect y'all to say that. Right. But we shouldn't be thinking about that. We should be examining that person and getting to know that person and see what their interests and their goals are, and think to myself, how can I contribute to that? If I'm really interested in being with them, how can I contribute to their success? And vice versa. Right? So this is how we begin to learn to love each other, because we got to recognize the hate that's within us. Because some of us we dismiss it as us just not feeling good, us having a bad day. But why are we having a bad day? What is it at that point when you woke up that you did not, that you weren't feeling it? This is why we as Muslims, we should be having affirmations. If those are practitioners of the Muhammadan faith, we should be waking up to our Fajr prayer and making salah. I want to, real quick, when we talk about, the brother gave a good measure on prayer. When we talk about prayer, we're asking for Allah. But then after we're asking for something for Allah. Going back to when we talk about when a Muslim makes the fard salat, or the obligated salat, salat is to make amends. So when you say when a Muslim goes to say I'm going to make salat, he's not saying he's going to make prayer. He's going to make amends, because we don't know what harm he has done to either himself or others. So he has to go to Allah to make amends for that. And then after that you have the dua, you have the prayer, you have the supplication. All right, but then after that you have something else to do. You got to meditate and listen to that still small voice to know how Allah is going to give you that revelation to make your situation better. So how many of us, after we pray, after we make salah, we make that dua, we ask for Allah for these so many things, you know, ask for that sister with that good credit and that car and so on and so forth. Do we take time to listen to Allah for Allah to say, nah, it don't work like that. This is what you need to do to get yourself in order.
Yes, right.
Or do we just, after we go to the prayer, we salam, assalamu alaikum, assalamu alaikum, we get up and we go out.
Right.
Salam, family. All right. So, good is thy power. We're still on instruction 6. Good is thy power. The want of good is evil, and if that question be just, lo, it condemneth thee. Would the fish swallow the bait if he knew the hook were hidden therein? This is what I was talking about before. Would the lion enter the toils if he saw that they were prepared for him? So neither were the soul to perish with its clay, neither would a merciful Father have created him, no hence thou shalt live afterwards. What are we saying? All right, is that first and foremost, he's talking about the cycle of man. He's talking about the point where we vibrated down from the spirits and part of Allah to the carnal plane, and to where the survival of the fittest is going on. So now he's giving a demonstration of how we as man, how we need sustenance. So we do things like we fish, and we plant things to where the fish is getting sustenance of his own. Ironically enough, he doesn't know what's laid for him. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with the lion. It's the same thing when we go further. On. But it goes on to say, so neither will the soul to perish with its clay. So when we recognize the spirit and the soul that is within us, we know that there's no failure for the human soul. For Allah has created thee with one, and thou shalt live afterwards. Y'all still with me? Instruction 8, as the bird enclosed in the cage before it seeth it, yet teareth not his flesh against his sides. So neither labor thou vainly to run the state thou art in, but know it is allotted thee, and be content with it. So in other words, cherish your life.
That's right.
Be more than content with it. Strive for perfection. Strive to be the living example of how you appreciate your life, so others may use that as an example and do the same. See, we walking around in desolation. So people see that. Just like I was talking about my interaction with the Sheik. People can see that, people can feel that. We talk about that all the time when we have the person that comes into the room and lights it up. And then we talk about the opposite, the person that comes into the room and just drains it. So if we know these things, we're supposed to be masterminds and scientists, then we should be studying the art of the science of happiness. That's in the pamphlet. The science of happiness. We should know about this. So we should be conditioning our spirit to be on high. It's a struggle. But without a foe, a soldier never knows the strength. Who are you to call yourself the faithful and not be tested? Though we're on instruction 9, and I'll be closing it down. Though its ways are uneven, yet they are not all painful.
All right.
Accommodate thyself to all, and where there is the least appearance of evil, respect the greatest danger. When thy bed is straw, thou sleepest in security. But when thou stretchest thyself on roses, beware of the thorns. A good death is better than an evil life. Strive therefore to live long as thou oughtest, not as long as thou canst. While thy life is to others worth more than thy death, it is thy duty to preserve it. All right. Islam, man? So, for further understanding, I encourage you all to read further And for the sake of time, I'm going to pause right there. Do we have any questions, any add-ons, any thoughts? Yes, sir. Please rise and be recognized.
I rise giving the highest of praise to the great God Allah, the highest honor to His Holy Prophet Ali.
Islam.
I needed to hear that. So that's all I really wanted to say. You know, a lot of times we have the question of what am I doing here? And, well, you know, I'm just going to be a shell, and you know, Allah just use me as a vessel to do, you know, will of Allah. But you know, I need to hear that just to appreciate life more. Right. So you know, gratitude.
Islam. And you know, I'm glad that you used the term vessel. You know, going back to the chapter in the Most Holy Quran where it refers to that empty car Christian, because you know it's you know when you have to be more than just the vessel. You know, you have to be that altar with a blazing fire, and it even says that, you know, to make your hearts blaze an altar. Islam. So you know, you have to make it practical. You have to know what you're called to do. And if you don't know what your calling or your purpose is, then you get with someone who does. It is not it's not a sin, or it doesn't discredit who you are if you know within your heart somebody's doing something morally sound. So go to an outreach. You know, go to an organization, come to the Morris Science Temple of America, and suggest some things that you may be seeing in the community that we don't see. Again, when we talk about the eyes of Allah and Allah being Allahu Alam, you know, the all-knowing, we know everything because of you. You know, so if you come in and say that there's something that needs to be done in the community, and there's a way that we can contribute, this is what we need to do, because we're not an organization to be just sitting here meeting and just building, or not just building, but just being lofty and philosophical. We want to build. That's the purpose. You know, we want to build and improve lives, because there's so many out there that there's so many lives out there that need it. You know, they were talking about, I was listening to you know, a podcast earlier this week, and within the podcast they had mentioned that what if the federal government were to allocate funds to every adult, $1,000. You know, so the question is, you know, that sounds good, but where's the money coming from?
That's right.
Okay. In addition to that, you know, in today's society, we have the misnomer that our issues can be solved with monetary gain. And our prophet even gave us that measure. You know, what did it say? Our prophet says that our problems are largely economic and social, but in a profound sense, it's more spiritual. So that we think that this $1,000 per month that we're going to get from the federal government is going to do things for us. Well, it really do things for us, because does it change our condition on how we are to spend that money? Let's talk about reparations for a minute. What does reparations mean? Let's write this word down. Reparations. And I'm going to yield the floor. Reparations. What does reparations mean?
It's Islam.
Islam.
It sounds, from me trying to break down the word, it looks like I see repair. So I would think it is something in an intent to repair or to bind or to repair a relationship between two parties or between certain parties.
Right. Simply put, you know, reparations comes from the term repair. And so that means is that, you know, any group of people that seek reparations, they seek it from those that have been, from the oppressed seeks to those from the oppressor, you know, through, you know, by way of war, etc., etc. All right. So when the Asiatic thinks of reparations, what do they usually think of? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Money.
Fiat.
But how does that repair your condition?
It doesn't.
In other words, how, and when we think about this, we've had nations. If you look up different nations that have received reparations, you're going to see a long list, from the Japanese all the way to the Native Americans. But what's very interesting, but what we have to also research is that this dollar amount was given to an organization that represented that nation. It wasn't given to just the individual. It wasn't just given to all the Japanese Americans that live in the United States. They didn't just get a stipend check. They didn't just get a stimulus check. Because that's really what the Asiatic is looking for right now. They're not necessarily looking for reparations. They're looking for a stimulus check. So they can go buy the new Jordans or the new such and such. They buy that big screen TV. Do you know now there's like a 70-foot, is it inch? Inch TV?
It's ridiculous though.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But people will get that. People will get the $1,000 check if we were to get one by the government and do what with it? How many of you are going to start a business? But based off of what I said earlier in my message, we have a mild condition, or I'll even go so far as to say we have a critical condition of Stockholm syndrome. So part of the reparations should honestly be at least 10 years of psychiatric assistance. That's part of the reparations. But you have to have an organization that to receive whatever dollar amount they see, because the federal government doesn't know, doesn't know directly. That's why it's important to have representatives. That's the reason for the Moorish Science Temple of America, because we can speak for you. We don't speak for just the Moorish Americans, we speak for the Asiatics. Because we are bound by Holy Covenant. But when we receive that, we say, well, what is needed for our people? Okay, our people need this, our people need that. That's where the reparations come in. We just don't just get the check. Check is not going to mean anything. It's not going to do anything for us. It's going to cause more problems because we don't know how to handle ourselves with it. Islam? All right. So, but yeah, we have to be more than that vessel. We have to be filled with the Holy Zeal. We have to be filled with the Holy Spirit. We have to have that saving power. So we have to continue to study our foremothers and our forefathers and study the literature of our prophet so we can understand more in depth that saving power, because we have to breathe that. We have to live it, we have to breathe it, we have to think it, we have to act upon it. It has to be a part of every part. So there's no condition that we have, a situation that we have, that our forefathers haven't dealt with to a certain degree before. The items, if you will, may be different. But our prophet talks about vices and addiction. He talks about it in that very chapter, chapter 39. All right? So we know how to deal with our vices. But we gotta bring that message to the brother or sister that's dealing with the vice. And we can't shame our people. All right? Because that's the thing. When prophet said, teach our people. When you teach someone, you don't shame them. But you let them know that there's something better, because our people truly believe there's nothing better out there than what they have. That's why this is important.
Yeah.
Gotta give them hope. So when you're walking out there, you're not just, you're telling them that they're not Negro, black, or color, because you're giving them hope for things that are better. So their condition can be better. And so they can know that there's a way for their condition to improve. Islam family? Islam. Okay. I'm thinking.
Allahu Akbar.
حي على الصلاة
Allahu Akbar.